At the beginning of the film, a young, pretty girl around the age of 10 is seen. Her name is Sophie, and she used to live in an orphanage because both of her parents had passed away. Sophie struggled with sleep disorders and frequently woke up during the night. She would often wander the orphanage at night because she suffered from a sleep disorder and had also a fear like the other kids that there is an old man who appears in the darkness and abducts the children. After this, he eats these children. One night, while everyone was asleep, she heard the sound of a cat, so she goes to check it outside. While on the balcony, she notices that the cats have knocked over the trash cans. Suddenly, she notices a giant hand placing the trash bin back in its place, emerging from behind the building. Moments later, a gigantic figure steps out from the back of the building. Sophie had just witnessed the giant, and it had also viewed her. Seeing it, she is scared and quickly rushes back to her bed. However, the giant reaches through the window, grabs Sophie, and takes her away. It is seen this giant used to keep itself hidden from the human beings. If any human being used to appear before it, it used to cover itself in some way. Then it steps into another world, taking Sophie. It was the giant's world. Sophie notices that the giant's house is enormous, with everything inside as gigantic as the giants themselves. Sophie tries to find a way out, but the giant stops her and says, "There is no way to escape. You cannot leave this place." She becomes terrified and notices that the giant is old. As it places her on a frying pan, it says, "I am feeling very hungry." Sophie thinks this giant is going to eat me. She also hears the laughter of other giants nearby and nervously asks the old giant, "Are there other giants here too?" The old giant replies, "Yes, there are many other giants, and they are all cannibals. They eat the raw flesh of humans and have no mercy. Anyone they capture is eaten without hesitation." Sophie becomes even more frightened. She nervously asks the old giant, "Will you eat me too?" The old giant replies, "No, I don't eat humans. I don't want to eat humans. I only eat vegetables." His response shows that he is a kind-hearted and sympathetic giant. Sophie, still confused, asks, "But why did you bring me here if you don't eat humans?" The old giant explains, "You saw me, and if you told someone, my life could be in danger. When humans learn about us, they come here and end up destroying the other giants. That's why I had to bring you here. Now, you will spend the rest of your life with me." Sophie shakes her head and says, "No, I will escape." The old giant warns her, "No, never try to run away. If you do, the other giants outside will show no mercy." He gently places Sophie on a board and says, "Rest for a while." But Sophie used to suffer the sleep disorders. Sophie then notices the giant pulling out large bottles from its bag. Inside, something sparkles. She asks, "What's in these bottles?" The giant replies, "These bottles contain dreams." Sophie responds, "Oh, then these are of no use to me because I don't dream because of my sleep disorder." The old giant then begins reading the book that Sophie had with her. It contained many stories. As the giant reads aloud, Sophie begins to feel drowsy. The stories in the book make her fall asleep. Afterward, the giant takes one of the bottles and pours out the dreams. Sophie slowly wakes up, noticing that the giant is still asleep. Seizing the opportunity, she escapes the house. But as she runs away, a huge giant, even larger than the old one, captures her. Sophie pleads with the giant, "Please let me go." But the giant pays her no attention and devours her. Suddenly, Sophie wakes up. It was all a nightmare. She sits up and looks at the old giant, asking, "It was you who did this? I can't sleep or dream, but the dream you showed me was a nightmare." The giant says, "I had to do it. I wanted to warn you about the dangers outside. It's safer for you to stay here." The old giant explains to Sophie, "The other giants are much bigger than me. I'm small and weak compared to them because I'm an old giant." As they are talking, a much larger giant enters the room. This giant was much bigger than the old one. It calls the old giant Pygmy, which is what all the other giants call him because he's the smallest among them. The big giant asks, "Pygmy, who were you talking to?" The old giant replies, "No one. I wasn't talking to anyone. But being a cannibal, it smells a human nearby and starts searching the room." Sophie quickly hides inside a vegetable. When the big giant smells the vegetable, it notices the scent of a human. It had never eaten this vegetable before, but today, it smells so tempting because Sophie is inside it. The big giant starts to eat the vegetable. The old giant shouts, "Stop! You can't eat that. Have you forgotten you don't eat vegetables?" That giant says on it, "Ah, how I forget it that I don't take vegetables." The big giant throws the vegetable and Sophie is saved. After that, the big giant leaves. The old giant then and gets ready to go somewhere. Sophie asks, "Where are you going?" At first, the old giant doesn't want to say, but after Sophie keeps insisting, it finally reveals, "I am going to capture dreams." Sophie says, "Take me with you." The old giant refuses, saying it would be too dangerous if the sleeping giants outside wake up and see you, but Sophie keeps insisting, so the old giant finally agrees to take her. When they step outside, they see that the other giants are asleep. They quietly try to cross the area, but suddenly, all the giants wake up. The giants tease the old giant, saying, "Pygmy, where are you going?" The old giant replies, "I'm going to do my work." The giants warn him, "We don't want you leaving for the world of humans. If humans find out about us, our lives will be in danger." The other giants keep teasing and irritating the old giant, but Sophie quickly hides in a nearby vehicle. The old giant points to the sky and says, "Look, it's cloudy and it's about to rain." The giants panic because they are afraid of water. Soon, it starts raining, and the giants run away to hide. Taking advantage of this, the old giant and Sophie escape together. They begin climbing up the mountains. As they climb higher, they go beyond the clouds. Sophie looks around and says, "The stars look so beautiful from here." The old giant replies, "I can also hear their rhythm. I can hear the sounds of everything in the universe. I can hear ants and insects, even the stories of trees. My hearing is so strong that I can listen to the voices of all things in the universe." Sophie says, "I don't believe your stories." The old giant smiles and says, "It's true, my dear. You'll see for yourself someday." Soon, they reach a lake. The old giant jumps into the water and Sophie follows. They swim across the lake and reach the other side. On this side, they find the world of dreams. Dreams fall from the tree like raindrops. The old giant explains, "This is why I come here, to collect dreams." Together, Sophie and the old giant capture many dreams, both good and bad dreams. The old giant shares its sad story with Sophie. "All the other giants call me Pygmy, but there was someone once who called me the big friendly giant BFG. That made me happy." Hearing this, Sophie says, "Then I'll call you the big friendly giant from now on." After capturing the dreams, they wander through the city, where children sleep peacefully in their homes. The big friendly giant gives the children good dreams. Sophie realizes that the big friendly giant is kind-hearted. He takes dreams from the dream world and shares them with people, bringing joy to their lives, even if only during their sleep. Curious, Sophie asks, "Did your parents tell you about dreams?" The big friendly giant replies, "Giants don't have parents." She then asks, "How old are you?" The big friendly giant says, "I'm as old as the universe itself. Giants were created when the universe was created, but we live hidden, away from humans." As they start to return, Sophie suddenly remembers something. "Where's my blanket?" she asks. It turns out her blanket was left in the giant's world. The big friendly giant looks worried and says, "I can't take you back now. The other giants have likely figured out that a human has been with me." Then, the big friendly giant shares another secret with Sophie. "A long time ago, I found a child just like you, innocent and kind. He saw me, just as you did, so I brought him into the world of the giants. That child taught me how to read. The jacket you're wearing belonged to him, but I couldn't bring him back in time. I don't want the same thing happen to you. You're my friend now, and I want you to be safe." The BFG decides to leave Sophie behind for her own safety. Then BFG begins to go, leaving her in the orphanage. Sophie did not want to stay there. Sophie jumps off the balcony, knowing the big friendly giant, BFG, will save her. And just as she expected, the BFG catches her. Though reluctant, the BFG agrees to take her back to the world of the giants. When they arrive, the other giants are waiting. They had discovered that the BFG was hiding a human. Using the scent from Sophie's blanket, they track down the BFG's house and start destroying his belongings in their search. To protect Sophie, the BFG burns her blanket to eliminate her scent. He then orders the giants to leave his house. While inside, Sophie notices a photo of a queen hanging on the wall and comes up with a plan. She suggests that the BFG create a dream for the queen, showing her the giants' world and how they eat children. Sophie also asks the BFG to include them in the dream, so the queen will recognize them when they meet her. The BFG agrees and creates the dream, including the giants, himself, Sophie, and the missing children. Then, they sneak to the queen's palace and deliver the dream to the sleeping queen. In the dream, the queen sees the giants eating children and learns about the danger. When she wakes up, she is terrified. She shares the dream with her attendant, who tries to reassure her, saying it was just a nightmare. But as they read the newspaper, they discover that many children went missing the previous night, just as the dream had shown. The queen orders the curtains to be opened, and there, Sophie stands by the windowsill. The BFG also steps forward, and bows respectfully. Sophie introduces him and asks the queen to promise not to harm him. The queen agrees and welcomes them warmly. The BFG explains the situation, including the fact that two of the biggest giants in the giants world are responsible for eating children. The queen promises to help and orders her military to prepare. With the BFG's guidance, they fly to the giants world in helicopters, ready to execute their carefully planned mission. The plan involves stopping at a strategic spot and launching a surprise attack. The BFG is tasked with creating a dream filled with repentance and guilt for the giants, to make them regret their cruel actions. The BFG crafts the dream and prepares to deliver it. However, just as the BFG approaches the sleeping giants, he realizes he left his dream-delivering tool in the queen's palace. Without it, delivering the dream would be risky. Sophie, showing her bravery, takes the dream jar and heads toward the sleeping giants herself. As Sophie approaches, the leader of the giants wakes up and spots her. Before the giant can grab her, Sophie smashes the dream jar and dreams spreads to the sleeping giants, filling them with guilt and regret for their terrible deeds. But the leader, who wasn't fully asleep, is unaffected. The leader attacks Sophie, but the BFG intervenes. Despite his small size, the BFG bravely faces the giant leader, but leader captures him in his massive hand. Just as the leader prepares to harm the BFG, the queen's military arrives in helicopters. The soldiers act quickly, capturing all the giants, including the leader. They are transported to an island surrounded by water, a place the giants fear and cannot escape from. The queen provided giants some seeds to grow vegetables for food. While the giants dislike the vegetables, they are left with no choice but to eat them for the rest of their lives. Sophie no longer lives in the orphanage but moves into the queen's palace, where she is happy and well cared for. She maintains her connection with the BFG, who can hear her every word, no matter how far they are. Meanwhile, the BFG, now alone in the giant's world, has built a peaceful life. He grows a variety of vegetables in his meadow and finds contentment in his quiet existence. Every morning, Sophie stands at her windowsill and calls out, "Good morning, BFG." The BFG always replies, and their bond remains strong. With this heartwarming conclusion, the story of the big friendly giant ends, leaving behind a tale of courage, kindness, and friendship.